Thank you for joining us for Tech Talks. This particular Tech Talks is on Microsoft PowerPoint presentations in half the time. My name is Sherry. My last name is way too long, so you can completely and utterly ignore my last name. So a little bit about myself. So back in the 80s, I used Aldous Persuasion HyperCard for presentations. I also did presentations on plastic overhead projectors back then. I don't know if anyone ever dealt with that. Then I discovered Microsoft PowerPoint, which was absolutely lovely. So I've been using PowerPoint since 1992. I've been teaching PowerPoint since 1993, so it's been a while. There is so much to cover in PowerPoint. I'm only going to cover a limited portion of it, and again, it's presentations in half the time. We'll go over that in a little bit, what I'm going to cover. But I just want to mention, if you have any questions, you can go to the questions panel and type them in. If we have time at the end of the presentation, I will try to answer as many questions as we can. Again, we'll just have to see how much time we have left at that point. Okay, so again, there's so much to cover with PowerPoint. And there's all sorts of stuff I love to cover, but this is just how can you throw a presentation together as quickly as possible? And I just want to go over a couple of techniques I'd probably recommend you use to throw it together quickly. So the first thing is, I think you should discover PowerPoint templates. Templates are pre-created presentations. So instead of creating something from scratch, instead of reinventing the wheel, you actually just grab one of their templates and use them. That'll be the first thing we look over. Then you want to go to the Design tab. It's another kind of a cool thing to go to. The Design tab allows you to kind of create a color scheme, fonts, things like that for your presentation, and just kind of quickly format things for your entire presentation. So Design tab is a great way to create a beautiful look and feel. Using the outline view is one thing you can also do if you have a very wordy presentation. So if you have a wordy presentation, there's a lot of stuff that you want to type up. It's actually easier to type it in the outline view than the normal view. Now, I'm not saying every presentation should be done in the outline view, and again, we'll be going over this in a little bit, but hopefully I can show you why that's cool. Then we'll be looking at master slides. Master slides, what that is let's say, I don't know, you have a 20 slide presentation and you want to change the title of every single slide in all 20 slides. Well, that would probably take a lot of time if you had to go to each individual slide and change it. You don't have to. You go to Master Slides. You go to Master Slides, you change the title there once, and it just automatically updates the entire presentation. And you don't know how many people I've showed this to, and they're like, oh, if I'd only known this earlier, I had 100 slides and I had to change each one manually. So Master Slides is very, very good for formatting your presentation. The last thing I want to cover today is drag and drop. So if you already have, let's say, a slide from a presentation you've already done and you want to add it to this particular new slide deck you're working on, well, don't reinvent the wheel, just drag and drop it over. So again, these are the topics I'm going to cover today. There's so much more to PowerPoint than these particular topics, but again, I'm just trying to focus narrowly on how do you put a presentation together quickly in PowerPoint. Okay. So the first thing we're going to be going over is the PowerPoint templates. You can kind of see here on the screen kind of what they look like. I'll actually be stopping this PowerPoint presentation in a second just to create a new one. But again, you go to the File tab and you click on New to get to it. So it's kind of an odd thing to do. So I'm going to kind of escape out of here. By the way, to start a PowerPoint presentation, I usually press F5 to start a presentation. To stop a presentation, one way to do it is press Escape. And I pressed Escape, so I'm out of the presentation. You can actually see the screen. So if you're, really doing a presentation, you typically don't want people to see the PowerPoint screen, but since I'm teaching PowerPoint today, we're gonna go ahead and do that. So let me just go back here for a second. So I'm going to the File tab here. So you just go to File, and then you click right here where it says New. So again, File New. It's not File Open. You'd think it'd be File Open, but it's File New. If you're going to do a blank presentation, you double click on this, and we'll get to that one later. If you're going to do a template, you can kind of see there's some templates already here. But typically what you want to do is you actually want to search for a particular template. So for example, you see it says suggested searches down here, and I'm just going to click on presentation so you can kind of see some of the suggested searches. And just look at all these things: outdoor presentation, universal, geometric, photo montage, winter presentation, travel, coastal presentation, healthcare pitch, restaurant pitch, all sorts of stuff here. Let me click on back and go back. And let's see, let's go to education. So here's some education presentations. Maybe if you have a kid in school, here's a project one, all sorts of stuff here. I don't know about anyone else, but my daughter starting in 4th grade had to do PowerPoint presentations in her elementary school of all things. Here's another one, business. Here's some business presentations. Okay, so let me just kind of click on one of these just so you can kind of see what it's like. So let's say I'm looking at this business presentation. There's general services pitch deck, and let's say I want to open it up. You just double click on it. So click, and it'll download it. And here we go. Now, what's kind of good about some of these templates is not only do they have a really nice look and feel, so you can kind of see as I kind of click through here, there's a very nice look and feel to the presentation, but they sometimes also have pre-created slides that you just fill in. So it says, okay, this is your pitch deck, then the second slide should be the big idea, and go over that. And then maybe the third slide should be the industry outlook. Now, again, you're allowed to move things around and change things. So for example, I wanted to cover the market first. I could click and hold on that and just kind of drag that there and change the order. So right over here on the left-hand side in this pane here, you can again just kind of click and drag and move things around. If you don't like a particular slide, let's say for some reason I didn't want to talk about our services, you can just click on the slide, and if you press your delete key, it's gone. So I hope you can see these templates are really, really nifty. I'll bring up one more template just to kind of show you how these are. And again, I just want to kind of show you can type over these things. So if you do a double click, it selects a word. If you do a triple click, 1, 2, 3, do you see how it selects the entire area? And then as you can see, I could actually start kind of typing over it right there. Okay. So I'm going to close this up and not save it. So let's just do a little file close, and I'll just do one more template just to show you another one. So I'll do, again, File, New. By the way, you might notice the templates I've already done will actually, a couple of them will show up there at the top. Typically what I do is I usually do a search for training, since I do computer training. And again, you can see all sorts of little training things here. This is going to be the training template I brought up here. So I'm going to just kind of, if you don't double click on it, you have to click on create, and it'll go ahead and throw it there. Again, same sort of thing. You can type over it, add your name right there. So I'll just type in Sherry there real quick. And again, you can kind of see how they've actually created an outline for you. So you just kind of fill things in. Again, double click for the word, triple click for the paragraph, and again, fill things in. So again, if you have something really quick to throw together, and maybe you don't even know what to say, I really recommend you go with the templates first. And some of them are just beautiful. So again, you might want to look into those templates. Again, that was File, New. Okay. All right, so let's go back to my presentation. The next thing I want to go over is the Design tab. And let me do this. I should tell you, I'm going to do Shift F5. I'm holding down the Shift key and I'm pressing F5. If you do Shift F5, instead of starting from the beginning of the presentation, it starts on the slide you're currently on. So if you want to start in the middle of your presentation, Shift F5 is what you do. And by the way, this presentation you're looking at right now, at the end of it, it has the keyboard shortcuts listed, including the F5 to start the presentation, Shift F5, which I just mentioned to you. They're actually in this presentation. You can download this for free. And again, we'll be talking over that later. Okay, so we're going to cover the Design tab next. So if you have a presentation, you can actually kind of quickly pull things together and format them with the Design tab. So let me just show you how that works. Again, I'm going to escape and X out of here just to kind of show you this. Okay, so I'm going to do a File, New, but I'm going to do a blank presentation right now. So just double click on the blank one. And I'm just going to throw a couple slides here. I don't actually have anything in these slides, but what I'm going to do right now is go to the Design tab. So when I go to the Design tab right here at the top, as I kind of hover over these, do you see how it actually changes it to the different designs that are here? And okay, let's say I want this one. And you can kind of see how it quickly formatted my entire presentation. So if you don't want to use the templates, if you kind of know what you're going to say, you might again want to go to the Design tab and again format it that way. Now, when you get to the Design tab, over here on the right-hand side is what we call the variants. Now, the variants don't always show up. It depends on the design, or the theme is what they call it. And if I click on the variants, again, if they are available, you can kind of see how it automatically changes it. Now, by the way, I really recommend you don't use red. Red, I think, is just so like, this is it's like looking at a red light. I think it's uncomfortable to look at personally, but that is just my opinion there. I really like the blues. I usually go there. So after you look at the variants, even if you don't see a variant, you will have colors, fonts, effects, and background styles. So if you go to where it says colors, so let's say I don't like the blue color for some reason. Maybe I wanted violet for some reason. I could click on that. You can kind of see how I can change the color scheme. Now, I don't want to really get into this too much, but you can also go into customize colors and actually create up your own color scheme. So I saw one company where they actually grabbed all the colors for their particular company's brands. Their logo had certain colors in it, and they actually had only the colors in their brand there in their customized colors. So just something to think about. You can also change the fonts, but I want to kind of give you a little caveat here with your fonts. When you create a presentation, let's say you need to run this presentation on a different computer. That different computer might not have the same fonts as your computer. So you want to stick with, I hate to say it, kind of the boring, regular fonts that everyone has, like Arial, Verdana, Calibri, Cambria, Times, things like that. So if you actually grab the different font color schemes here, and I hope you can kind of see as I change this, you see how it's kind of changing right behind me. It's changing the fonts there. These are, again, typical fonts that are generally on most people's computers. So if you change that to their default fonts, you should be pretty safe. There's also something called effects. It's not going to do anything here. You actually have to create shapes, which I'm not going to get into in this presentation, but if you create some shapes, the effects will affect the shapes. The last one is background styles. So if you go to background styles, generally they'll have some pre-created background styles. Now, what I actually kind of do for this is if I'm actually trying to print something out on paper, and right now we have this purple background. I mean, I think the purple background looks absolutely gorgeous, but imagine how much ink I'm going to waste if I had print this out on paper. So you might want to kind of, switch it up and kind of change it to a white background just for printing. And then when you're done, maybe switch that back there. You can also change the background style. So if you go to background styles and go to where it says format background, and it's over here on the right-hand side. There's all sorts of stuff you could do here. And again, I wish I had a little more time, but I'm just going to go to something called gradient fill. Gradient's one of my favorites. When you click on gradient fill, down here, it has the gradient stops. And you can kind of see it has the black, kind of a peach, and kind of a yellow color here. You can actually change these colors. So like, oh, I hate these colors here. Let's change them. You can go ahead and click, let's say, on the peach color. When I click on it, you can kind of see right here, I can kind of click and change it in there, purple. That looks pretty awful. You can also get rid of them. So you can actually drag this off to delete it. And you can also click back on it to add another tab. So again, if you want to get rid of any of the gradient stops, which I call tabs there, you just drag them off. And again, click back on there to add another one again if you wish. Okay, and let's see, I'll kind of quickly change to a couple different colors here. All right, so I don't know if this looks good or not, but there we go. You can also change the angle. So as I'm kind of clicking here, you can kind of see how the angle is changing. Actually, I kind of like that. As much as I like that particular angle, I think it kind of makes sense for this particular presentation to have it kind of at diagonal angle there. That makes a little more sense. Okay. Kind of works with the little lines here. Okay, so that's your format background. Kind of one last thing, just want to kind of mention this is slide size. This depends on your projector. If you have an old VGA projector, you want to do the standard. If you have an HDMI projector, you probably want to do widescreen. So it just kind of depends on your projector. And sometimes this is something you just have to change on the fly right before the presentation runs. Okay. All right, so that's the design view, and I hope you can see it's kind of neat. You can quickly format your presentation that way. Okay, let me go ahead and close that, and not going to save that one. Okay, so now we're going to look at the outline view. Again, I'm doing another Shift F5, so we're just looking at this. So the outline view is, again, when you have a wordy presentation, you have a lot of things that you want to talk about. And you want to kind of quickly just throw things together and then kind of think about, okay, what what am I going to cover first? What am I going to cover second? How am I going to do that? So you're trying to get your thought processes down. The outline view is a really, really good way to do that. So I'm going to be doing the outline view in a second. I just want to mention two keyboard shortcuts before I begin. Oops, I was going to double click on something and it moved me forward. So you press the tab key to do something called increasing the indent. So basically you'll first start with like it says, quickly putting a presentation together. And then when I press my enter key and go down to the next line, it'll actually do a new slide. And instead of a new slide, let's say I want the bullet points underneath, I press my tab key and I'll create some bullet points. And each time I press my enter key, I'll get a new bullet point. If I want that bullet point to either move in or out, so again, to the right-hand side, you press your tab key. If you want to move it back to the left, you do Shift Tab. And if you want to have a new slide, you can press Control Enter. So I'll just kind of show you how this works. So I'm going to kind of escape out of here again. And I'll do another File New. And again, I'll just do a blank presentation. Okay, so to get to the outline view, actually, let me type this up real quick. All right, I'm going to type in my title slides. So PowerPoint, subtitle, let's say CPS HR. Okay. All right, so what you do is you go to the View tab. And on the View tab, you'll see there's a normal view, an outline view. There's slide sorter, notes, pages, reading view. There's all sorts of stuff, but we're just going to look at the outline view. Now, by the way, the outline view is normally really, really small. You can kind of see I was able to resize this and make that a little bit bigger. And I'm making it a little bit bigger just so I could type up some stuff in the outline view. Okay, so let's say I want to call this. So I want to kind of point out to you, I'm not going to be typing anything over here. I'm going to be typing everything over here on the left. So I'm going to type in Intro to PowerPoint. Okay, then I have CPS HR. Now I want to have a new slide. So I'm going to hit Control Enter. And when I hit Control Enter, you can kind of see how a new slide popped up. And let's say the next slide is going to be called PowerPoint Basics. Oops, helps that I could spell things correctly. Okay, all right, so now if I press my Enter key, do you see how it automatically creates a new slide? And I don't actually want a new slide, I want some bullet points under PowerPoint Basics. So I press my Tab key, and you see, I guess it's a little bit hard to see on my screen, but I actually have a bullet point right over here. And let's say I want to type about pointers. I think I'll try to not worry about spelling things incorrectly anymore after this. Pointers, and then let's say I want to go over keyboard shortcuts. Okay. And adding slides. Okay. All right, now if I press my Enter key again, I get another bullet point, but I want to go back. So I'm doing something called a Shift Tab. So Shift Tab moves me back, and I now have a new slide. So after PowerPoint Basics, let's say I want to cover transitions. If you don't know what transitions are, it's when you move from one slide to the next, how it kind of changes things. So transitions, I'm pressing my Enter key, it's creating a new slide, and I'm going to kind of tab over there. And I'll just type in setting up, timings, and effects. Okay. So then let's say the next thing I want to cover is animations. So again, I have a bullet point here. I'm doing Shift Tab to go back to the left. And let's say I'm going to type in animations. And then when I press my Enter key, again, it's creating a new slide. So again, I'm going to press Tab so I actually have the bullet point. And for animations, again, we'll type in effects, types, and timings. Okay. Now I could keep on going, but I'll just kind of stop there. So I hope you can kind of see how you could type up the outline view there. Now, I know this is probably not the most exciting thing in the world, but let me show you some more interesting things here. The other cool thing about the outline view is after you type it up, let's say like, oh, I don't like the order there. I want to cover transitions after animation. So you click on the actual slide. So you see next to the 3, there's a box there. And your cursor changes to a 4-headed arrow, and I can kind of drag that down. And now I'm covering transitions after animations. And then let's say I want to move one of these bullets. So let's say I want to click on effects and I want to drag that for some reason to PowerPoint Basics. You see, you can actually move the bullets between the slides. So I hope you can kind of see that if you're typing up, again, maybe a general presentation, you don't quite know how you're going to cover it or in what order, you can again change your mind after you type it up in the outline view. And again, just click and hold, drag and drop. And again, you can also click and hold on a bullet point and drag and drop that to move things around. Okay, all right, so that's your outline view. And what we're going to do next is let's go back to our presentation here. So it's the outline view. The next thing we're going to do is master slides. So if you already have kind of a presentation put together, and I've kind of threw something together here real quick, and you want to format your entire presentation quickly, master slides is kind of a way to do it. Now what I'm going to do first is I'm going to go to the design tab and throw one of those designs on it, and then I'm going to go into the slide master and go ahead and change it. And again, it's going to affect the entire presentation at one time. So for example, if I want to change the title of every single slide and make it a particular color, a particular font, or a size, it's just going to automatically change my entire presentation instead of having to go to each slide individually and again change how it's formatted. So I hope that kind of makes sense. If it doesn't, we're going to get into this in a second. So let me go back to my plain presentation here. Going back to the design tab, and I think I'll throw this back on here again. Oh, this is in the outline view right now. If I want to change this back to what is called the normal view, where you actually see the slides on the left-hand side, you go back to the view tab and you just change that back to normal. There you go. And by the way, there's all sorts of other good stuff here, like slide sorter is really good too, but I will stop there. Okay, so a couple things I might want to change. So the font right here is too small. I want to make that, and maybe I want to change the font. Maybe I want to change the bullet points. Maybe I want to change the amount of space between these. This is a really good spot to go to Slide Master to do it. So what you do is you go to the View tab again. We're already there, luckily. And you go to where it says Slide Master, right over here. Okay. And again, this is one of the big things I really wish people knew about PowerPoint is the Slide Master. Okay, now one of the hardest things is for some reason it scrolls you down and you have to scroll back up and find slide number 1. So when you first get into Slide Master, you're here on what is called the title slide, and it only changes one of them. You have to go back and click on the top one. When you change something in the top slide, it kind of cascades down and changes all the ones underneath it. So you always want to make sure you're at the very top one. Okay, now that I'm at the top one, of course, we already changed colors before, but let me change that to violet there. All right, so let me select this. Double clicking selects a word. Triple click, 1, 2, 3, selects an entire paragraph. I don't know why they don't bold their fonts in the PowerPoint presentation. I usually bold them. And I'm going to make the font size a little bit bigger. I'll make that 60. And then I will go over here to the bullet points here. I'm also going to make that a little bit bigger. By the way, I right mouse click there if you're wondering, and I'm just going to click on the A here to make that bigger. And it definitely should be bolded. I think that should be bolded. And I think the font size, because the background color is purple, we should change that to a lighter color. So let's change that, let's say to white. Now, the other thing I want you to notice is you see how the text is too close to the bullet here. If you want to change and move kind of the text away from the bullet, you have to do each one separately. So this has to be done separately from the second level. So what you do is you click on just whatever line you're going to change, and you actually have to go right up here. And let me actually go back to the PowerPoint presentation so I can kind of show you this. So I have to go to a different slide here. Okay, let me do Shift F5 so you can see this a little bit. So basically there's something called indent margins, and I like to call them little Hershey kisses. So you'll see over here on the left-hand side, this top little Hershey kiss actually affects where the bullet is. And the bottom one, the bottom little Hershey kiss down here, it actually affects where the text to the right of it is. And by moving those, you actually change things. So for example, you can kind of see here, you see how by moving these, you can actually change the text underneath it and actually how it changes things. Okay, so I just want to go over that in my presentation here real quick. So what I'm going to do is I'm clicking on that line, and it's kind of hard to see, but I'm going to click on the bottom Hershey kiss, which is the hanging indent. And as I move that over, you see it gives me a little more space between the bullet and the text. Now, if I actually click on this top one, do you see how the bullet moves over as I move that top one there? The other thing I do need to mention is in order to change your indent, you need to have the ruler showing. And if it's not showing for any reason, you have to click on the View tab. You have to put a checkbox for ruler. Almost everything in Microsoft Office, I don't know why, both in Word and PowerPoint, they don't have the ruler showing, and you really need the ruler showing if you're going to change the bullet. So again, click on View and make sure there's a checkbox there for ruler. All right, I'm going to change the second level as well. So I'm going to click on the second level, and again, I'll just kind of move that back a little bit, and move that a little bit over. And again, I could do the same thing for the 3rd, 4th, and 5th level as well. Okay. All right, so again, I hope you can see how I made the font sizes bigger. I changed it from kind of a dark color to a lighter color. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to do one more change here. This is the title slide, and I'm going to make this a little bit bigger as well. So let me also make that about a 60. And let me also change this color to white so I can see that a little bit better and make that a little bit bigger too. Okay, so typically you go to the top one, you change that, and this is for most of your slides. And then the very second one, this is just your very first slide, the very first slide of your presentation is called the title slide, and you probably want to change that as well, but always start with that top one. Okay, now when you're done, you'll see there's a tab here that says Slide Master. And again, there's so much more to Slide Master on this, but I'm going to kind of stop right here. You click on Close Master View. Now, when I close the Master View, I want you to notice how I changed all 4 of my slides here all at once. And I hope you can kind of see that's a really, really kind of neat thing to be able to do that. Okay. All right. Let me see if I go back. Go back here for a second. Okay. The last thing I want to cover, let me do another Shift F5 so you can see this, is how to basically repurpose or reuse a slide. So if you already have some slides on another presentation that you want to reuse, it's actually really, really easy. You just do something called drag and drop to drag them to the presentation and reuse them. So I'm going to kind of show you how to do this. So again, I'm going to escape out of this again. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up another slideshow. So I'm going to do File Open. And I'm going to choose, I did one on word styles. We'll just kind of bring this up real quick. So I actually have 2 presentations. Actually, I might have 3 this one as well. So let me close up this presentation here, and I'm not going to say that one. So I only have 2 open. So I have my PowerPoint presentation here, and I have one that I did for word styles. By the way, this is already saved. I'll go over and show you where this is. So if you actually want to check out some of our other previous Tech Talks, they're actually saved, and you can view them at any time. Okay, so I want to, let's say, grab some slides from this Microsoft Word presentation and put them, let's say, into PowerPoint. Well, the first thing you do is you go to the View tab. And after you click on the View tab, there's a little button. I know it's kind of hard to see, but it says Arrange All. So View tab, Arrange All. When you do so, you can kind of see your slides are really, really small. So I usually like to resize that so you can see this a little bit better. So let me click on here, make it activated, and then I can resize that. Okay, so if I wanted to grab, let's say, why use word styles over here, and I wanted to put in my presentation. First, you click on the slide you want, and then you just drag and drop it, kind of say drag to drop it there, and boom, you can kind of see how it's there, it's in this presentation. And here's word pointers. Let me throw this one over as well. Let me click on word pointers, and I'll drag and drop it over there, and there we go. So to get rid of them, you just press your delete key. So if you ever want to get rid of slides, again, just click on the slide itself and press delete. Okay, so that is the main presentation. Let me close up this one and here. We don't have too much time for questions, but I just want to ask Julie, who's kind of our organizer here, if there's some questions.
We actually do have a couple of questions. Thank you, Sherry.
Okay.
So the first one came in with, do templates include transitions and/or animations?
Sometimes. So sometimes they do. I'd really recommend, usually they don't. I'd say like 95% of the time they won't include them, but some templates will. So you never really know. Most of the time they don't. What I really recommend you do with transitions, okay, let me just show you this. Show this real quick. If you click on the View tab, you see where it says Slide Sorter. And when you have Slide Sorter, you can actually see all the slides. And then what you do is you hit Control A. When I hit Control A, do you see how everything's selected? And then you go to Transitions. And I'm just going to choose something really simple like random bars. And what I've done here is I've applied a transition to every single slide in my presentation really, really quickly. So again, went to the View tab, chose Slide Sorter, went to Transition, chose Random Bars. Animations, boy, that would be a long topic. You actually have to do animations for each slide individually, and that takes quite a while. It's really cool to do that, so don't get me wrong, but it's kind of an individual slide thing. Again, templates, it's hit or miss if they're there. Okay. Any other questions?
One about the dragging and dropping. So
Okay.
when you drag a slide from one presentation into a different one,
Hmm.
does the dragged slide adopt the template and look for the new presentation that it's in, or does it
Good
retain
question.
its old one?
Good question. Okay. You have a choice. Okay, so let me kind of rephrase that. Let me actually bring up another presentation. Looks totally different. No, it's too bad I closed up that other one I did. Let's do my HTML one. Okay, I think you can see this is the HTML class that I teach. As you can see, it's orange. It looks totally, utterly different here. And let me do a little arrange all here. And I should probably take this out of the slide sorter. Let's do normal there. Okay, let me kind of resize this one. Okay, so this is definitely orange. Okay, all right, so I'm going to drag and drop this over here to this presentation. And you see how it actually grabbed kind of the look and feel of this, but not entirely. But instead of being orange, it's grabbing kind of apparently the blue color of the CPS HR presentation here. You can see how the font is a lot different. Now, what you can do is you see there's a little drop-down triangle here. You can say, oh, no, I don't like that blue color. I want it back to where it was originally. And you click on Keep Source Formatting, and you can actually keep the original formatting. So when you drag and drop, if you don't like it, click on that drop-down triangle and change it. And I want to also mention you have to do this immediately after you drag and drop. If you go back and do something more later on, you will no longer have this option anymore. So immediately when you do your drag and drop, try to change that. Okay, let me delete that out. Any more questions?
I know we're running a little bit over, but I do want to include this one last question that we did receive, and this was from someone asking how you can make a presentation ADA accessible.
Oh boy. Okay. Okay, so that's a really big question. So that is a huge question. And I guess I'll just have to point you in the right direction. It'd probably take me at least an hour, hour and a half to cover that question correctly. So let me just point you in the right direction so you kind of know where to go, but there's so much to this. Um, so ADA, making things accessible to people who are blind, disabled, or colorblind. So not just blind, there's also color blindness. There's just so much to cover in this. So in general, once you create your presentation, you click on the File tab and you go to Info. After you go to the File tab and go to Info, do you see where it says Check for Issues? You can click where it says Check Accessibility. And what it'll do is it'll actually go through and say, okay, these are all the accessible issues that you have in this presentation. And again, there's so much to cover here. But one thing is basically every single graphic, you have to do something called an alternative text tag. So do you see here, it's saying each one of my graphics here is missing an alternative text tag. And you can actually go to the graphic and set it as something called decorative, which means please don't read this to the blind person. It's just a decorative little flourish. Or this is the CPS HR logo. And like for the CPS HR consulting, that's not going to actually be read to the blind person. So you actually have to create an alternative text tag that'll say CPS HR Consulting, and it'll be read to the blind person. There's also something called the reading order you need to set up. There's just a lot of stuff you need to do. And I will recommend here at the bottom, it says read more about making documents accessible. If you click on that, it has a big long link and there's a lot of instructions there. When I do cover accessibility in my PowerPoint class, which is generally the PowerPoint Level 2 class that I teach, we spend at least an hour, hour and a half on this. It's a really big topic and it is important. It is important if you put any PowerPoint presentation online, you're required by the state of California to make it accessible to people who are blind or colorblind. So yeah, do kind of keep that in mind. Quick little note about color blindness. I try to keep with, I know this is boring, but a white background, dark text, really, really boring, but if they're colorblind, it works really well. So Julie, you think we're
I think, yep, that covers absolutely everything. And thank you very much.
okay, thank you. And thank you everyone who joined us for this Tech Talk. And there are more Tech Talks if you're interested. Let me bring this up here real quick. So you go to cpshr.us/about/events/webinars. And there's many more events we have here. And again, we're probably looking to add a few more. We'll see what happens with that. Okay, thank you so much. And I guess we're done for this session.